Happy New Year, it's 2024. Today I'm going to tell you 10 ways you can improve your English this year. But before we begin, please press subscribe and press like. Let's begin. The first thing that we have to think about is that we have to think about our motivations and our goals. What is the reason we want to improve our English this year, and how can we go about doing that? There could be many reasons why you want to improve your English. For example, you want to pass a language exam like IELTS or FCE or CAE. It could be to do with your job. Maybe you have to use English in your job, so you want to improve your spoken and written English in order to do your job better. Maybe you plan to travel in the summer or this year at some point to another country, especially where English is the first language, so you might want to learn some new words or phrases. Here are just a few examples that you can think about when you are thinking about what is your goal, what is your motivation. As someone who's learned languages before, I know that having a goal or a motivation is something that's very important because it can keep you on the right track. You can make sure you're doing everything right in order to reach your goal. So that's the first thing that I think is very important. The second thing that I also think is very important is you need to make time. You need to have a clear study schedule. What might that look like? It can depend, because maybe you go to school, college, university, you have a busy job, you own a company. There could be many reasons which mean your time is limited. Also, you could have other commitments, like you go to the gym, or you have a family, you have children, you have a dog or a hamster to look after. So there could be many things that limit your time. But I think having a clear study schedule is important. So for example, one thing you can do is try to think about, maybe I need to spend an hour or half an hour, it can even be half an hour, every morning or every evening around my English study. Maybe I do something different every day. Today I do some listening, tomorrow I write something down in my journal, and the next day I will talk to somebody in English. And if you make this schedule, and it doesn't have to be long, half hour, like I say, every day, morning and night, or just morning or just night, then that will help you improve over the time as well. So by this time in 2025, you will be much better than you are now. So I think that's a really good thing to consider. The third thing I think you need to think about is the material, like what are you going to use? And I think you need to diversify. You need to use a range of different materials to help you improve. So not just rely on one textbook or one video, for example, in order to improve. I think you need to use a wide range, many different things. So for example, if you want to learn more words, reading is a fantastic way to learn more words, but maybe you can try to read from different sources. Maybe not just read books, not just read magazines, but also read websites or other articles in other newspapers. Maybe even try to read some other things in English, like maybe find your favorite recipe in English on the internet. You can find it and then try to recreate it. It's a great way to practice. And alongside that, you have to think about other materials you might use as well when it comes to listening. Now, one thing you can use to improve your listening skill is like the radio or YouTube. These are all free things that you can find on the internet. Writing, you can try to write a journal, or you can set up a social media account, for example, on one of the very popular social media websites like this one. So there are many ways in order to output your language or input your language in order to improve. Now, the fourth most important thing is actually to have conversation, because I think many people like you do all the other things, I think, pretty well, but the one thing people struggle with the most, because they talk to me about it the most, is the speaking. So the fourth thing you must do is try to engage in more conversations with other people. It's really important because speaking can give you more confidence. Don't worry about making mistakes because that can happen, trust me. But I think that more conversations you have, more confident you feel, and therefore the better you will get, because you will be more confident to use some of the other words or phrases that maybe you are holding back because you are not so confident. So it's very important to engage, to have conversation with other people. The fifth thing I think you need to do is try to use some apps. Try to use technology more in your learning. So for example, using YouTube or using any other video website can be a good start, like that's where you are right now. But other apps are also available. For example, Duolingo. It might sound simple or easy, but it's one way to keep you motivated to do 5 minutes of Duolingo every day. It can help. There are also other English apps. You can just go to your app store, Google Play Store or any other app store, and you can find some English learning related apps for you to use. Also, I think that you can try to take some classes using some apps, like there is italki, for example, which I think is a really good place to have the class. And there are many apps that are out there, okay, especially the language learning ones, which brings me on to the sixth one, which is to join online communities. You can find many online communities, like on Reddit, for example, which is a great place where you can go and type some things to some people and have discussions about some things in English. Or you can join some other apps as well that are like online communities where you share the languages. Maybe that means you might have to use your own language to talk with somebody else because you are having a language exchange. But places like HelloTalk, for example, or Tandem, and maybe there are other ones. Whenever you go on the App Store nowadays, there are tons, there are many of these apps available, so why not try them? The seventh way I think that's a good way is to write regularly. It's really important because writing is another way to output, just like speaking. And one way to do that is to keep a journal. That's right, a journal. You can keep it underneath your pillow before you go to bed every night. You can write down your feelings, what you did during the day, and maybe what you're going to do tomorrow. Maybe you can even write down what you're thankful for, or any ideas for some other things. Make sure it's in English, and it can be really helpful for you, especially if you don't have anyone to talk to in English, because obviously speaking, like I said before, is very important, but speaking is one way to output a language. Another way to output a language is also by writing. So try it today. You won't regret it. The eighth tip that I want to tell you is flashcards. Flashcards can be really helpful. Even I use them, it's true. I use flashcards to help me to improve my languages that I like to learn. And flashcards are basically where you are trying to learn the words that you want to learn in that language, but then on one side you have your target language, which your target language, the language you want to learn, which for you is English, and on the other side is your native language, which for me is English. And then you can kind of look at the side and try to translate. And it's really good way to practice the words. So you see, for example, maybe I want to learn some Spanish. I look at the Spanish words and I say English, but then if I see an English word, then I try to say the Spanish word. And then I do this repetitively, maybe morning and night or once a day. And I think it's also a great way to learn words, so that by the end of the year, and I have done this actually the last year with Chinese, and I now know that the number of Chinese words I know is 2,500, which is unbelievable really. But I did that by using flashcards. So maybe by the end of the year you can know 2,500 English words, which sounds amazing, right? Number 9 is, I think, to stay informed about things. I think if you regularly read websites like the news, like BBC, CNN, etc., they are just the basic news websites for UK and USA, and you can keep up to date with some topics, so you have some topics to talk about with some other people, especially things that are affecting the world today. Maybe they will affect somebody else, so having some knowledge of these topics can also help you when creating conversations with other people. Maybe even, like we said before, about the writing tasks, doing more writing before you go to bed. Maybe these are the things you can also write about in your journal. Okay, so that's another good thing I really advise you to do. But the 10th tip, the most important one, is basically to immerse yourself. Immerse means basically, if you look up the word immerse, it means basically to go in water. And imagine the water is English. And that's what I mean when I say immerse yourself. Everything around you is English. If you open your mouth, instead of drowning, the English will go in your mouth. The English is everywhere. And that's what immerse yourself means. So if you really want to improve, do that. Make sure English is surrounding you every day in what you do. If you do have an interest, and I'm sure you do, make sure you do it in English. If you like to read a book, read it in English. If you like a certain kind of music, listen to it in English. If you like to write novels, write it in English. If you're a chatterbox and you like gossiping, do that in English. And I trust you, and you will come back to me in 1 year's time and say, wow, my English is so much better, and you will thank me for it. But of course, another thing you can do, the 11th tip, is to subscribe to this channel and like the video. That's the best tip I can give you. And another good tip I can give you is probably watching the next video, which probably will appear over here or is over here right now. And is another good way, because the more you immerse yourself, like I said, especially in the videos, immerse yourself, the better you will get.